Is it true that you're building out a cryptocurrency capability?
No.
Don't your clients want crypto exposure?
No, I don't believe any client has sought out crypto exposure.
Really?
Yes.
Is it time yet for BlackRock to either trade in digital assets or digital virtual currencies, if you prefer, or to create a product for your clients?
We're not hearing any demand from any of our clients.
It's not an institutional thing yet.
It's far from that. As I said, it's much more of a speculative platform for Asia, and it's heavily used for money laundering. Just yesterday, we launched the iShares Bitcoin ETF. I'm very bullish on the long-term viability of Bitcoin.
I was going to say, did that surprise you?
That surprised me how much that. As you know, I was a skeptic.
Yes!
I was a proud skeptic. My opinion 5 years ago was wrong. Here's my opinion today. This is what I believe in today. I believe Bitcoin is legitimate. If everybody adopted that conversation, it would be 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 for Bitcoin.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back. I know it's been a long time for an update. There wasn't much to go over, but I did want to just give you a bit of an update of what I'm seeing in the charts right now and everything that we're going over, because actually, if we look right here, you will notice that we are in sort of this descending, falling wedge pattern, but we keep getting a lot of resistance right here. And we've been trying, as you see right here, we've been trying to break out for the past 3 days, but every single time we keep getting rejected. So obviously, if we do get another rejection, this could mean that the Bitcoin price will be, coming back to sort of this lower area around 77. But the bigger question is, are we setting up for a massive move to the upside, or could it be getting a lot worse? Because I'm going to tell you the truth, guys. I've gone to a few crypto events over the past 2 weeks. There was the Dirty Boxing event that was in Miami. And I could tell you that there are a lot of people that are quite bearish right now, getting very, very scared about what they should be doing. And I'm going to show you exactly what I am seeing in the charts right now and how this could literally change everything, but it also could be a bit of a make or break, right? You might know what we're talking about if you remember. And by the way, if you are following me over on LevX, then you already know what I'm about to talk about today. And obviously, if you guys aren't following me over on LevX, it is an exchange, but there is a social media aspect to it. So if you want those updates, those quick charts that I don't put on Twitter or YouTube, definitely just sign up using the link below. Obviously, it's absolutely free. But, the one thing I wanted to point out was you might know who Josh Mann is at this point. He's the guy who, he had the Bitcoin prophecy. He said months and months ago that we were going to go to 84,000 on, a certain date, and he got it absolutely right. Now he's calling for a $444,000 Bitcoin. Is that going to happen this cycle? Not too sure about that, but I did like this and I retweeted this. You do not plant a seed in the ground and then dig it up every day to see that it is growing. Bitcoin will grow. And I think that's the issue, right? You're just looking at your chart, you're looking at the Bitcoin price every single day, and we know that Bitcoin is extremely volatile, especially in these lower time frames, right? But what I like to do is sort of just zoom out, and when you do that, you get a much clearer picture of exactly what is going on. So those are some of the things that I want to go over today. I also want to specifically mention the fact that we did close this massively large futures gap, right? Now, this gap had formed back in November of last year. So we could take that off, right? We'll take that out. But what we did do, unfortunately, if we zoom in here, we put in this tiny, tiny gap right sort of around 84,800, right? Now, obviously, this gap took us a long time to fill, right? Many, many, many days until we filled it. It's only been 3 days since we put in this gap. So, on the short term, it wouldn't be out of the cards to see Bitcoin maybe come down here, fill that gap over the next week, and then move back up, right? We wouldn't be surprised if we saw some of these lower levels. Could it get a lot worse? We'll get into that. But before we do, also, I want to mention for everyone who wants to trade decentralized, you can go over to Antarctic and you can actually trade decentralized over here. They do have it on Arbitrum 1. The fees are incredibly, incredibly cheap, but what's even cooler than that is if you come over to the market making pool. I just wanted to show you this insane APY. They have 43.54% APY right now, and the reason they're able to offer such a high amount is because it is a market making pool, right? So these are coming from fees and trades, and this is really the first opportunity for the average person to sort of get a cut, right, of what the exchanges usually get. So, you know, if you're savvy and you know how to do that, Arbitrum 1, it is not hard at all. I can make a tutorial if you want, but, you know, if you got some stable coins just sitting around, you know, put them in there and just be a market maker, you know. So anyway, guys, let's hop in and let's have a look at what's going on. So the thing we were tracking was obviously this global M2 money supply. Now, this money supply, you could see Bitcoin tends to sort of lag, right? It falls down and then Bitcoin falls down before it. It starts to pump and then Bitcoin starts to pump after it. Well, I mean, look at this. You can see right here, the M2 money supply had this massive fall. It had basically this double bottom pattern and it started moving to the upside, and Bitcoin has finally just caught up with this lower level. And usually what ends up happening is Bitcoin tends to follow, right? I mean, it's pretty simple. If there's more money in circulation, there's more money to go into, you know, these speculative or risky types of assets, right? And, you know, just a few things you might have noticed. GameStop has now announced an update to its investment policy to add more Bitcoin as a treasury reserve. We also have the FDIC removing reputational risk from its bank supervision criteria. So this is basically trying to eliminate that Operation Choke Point 2.0 that we saw in the previous administration, basically trying to squash the entire crypto industry, whereas now we're seeing a very forward crypto, especially Bitcoin forward, you know, what do you call it? Sorry, guys, there was this crazy squirrel. Oh, can I show you the squirrel real quick? You guys see that? Oh, he's hiding. Why'd you do that? Oh my God, he's making me look like a liar. There he is, right there. You have no idea. Anyway, guys, that was mad random, but it kind of freaked me out a bit. So anyway, another thing to talk about is the Bitcoin price is, you know, as far as these, I'm not saying the 4-year cycle is necessarily out or intact, whatever. I do think it's a little different this time. We have a lot more institutional money, but as you can see right here, you know, look at these previous cycles. Look at this 2012 cycle, 2016 cycle, 2020 cycle. Now, look, I'm all about diminishing returns. You know, I understand that we're not going to end up, you know, doing, you know, 1,000x or 100x like, you know, we had when Bitcoin was only 5 cents to $1 or whatever. But, you know, I mean, look at this, guys. This would be like one of the most sort of, you know, pathetic cycles we've ever seen for Bitcoin. We haven't even really seen the blow off banana type move, right? So, you know, just having a look at that, it would make you think that probably the cycle is not over. Now, I want to start with the TA today. I normally put the TA at the end, but I think it's really important to sort of put things into perspective of what we are seeing right now, because there is a lot of bearishness out there. But, you know, if you're looking on the shorter term, yes, we have a daily downtrend, right? So downtrends are not good, right? That's the trend. The trend is your friend until the end. And right now the trend is down, right? But the overall trend, the larger macro trend, the long-term trend is up. As you guys can see right here, these are just a few of the most simple, basic indicators you can get, right? We have the stochastic RSI, the regular RSI, we have the MACD, and we also have this Gaussian channel, right? And as you can see, in these bull markets, we tend to have the channel acting as support. Once it breaks down, that's kind of when we can say, okay, you know, maybe we're having a little bit of, you know, maybe the party's coming to an end. Well, as of right now, you know, we've had a beautiful support up here. And if we zoom in, this last move didn't even touch the line. The line actually got front ran, right? And look at the similarities. For example, just between, let's say, this MACD crossover with the RSIs here, right? We have the RSI down here. We have this sloping down. We have the purple moving up. These bands have crossed, and we have a lighter shade on the MACD. Now, keep in mind, back here, it doesn't mean that the move is necessarily over. We had our first, you know, around 39,000 back in 2021, and then Bitcoin still went down to 27,000. Right? But what it was signaling was a potential bottoming, right? You can see the similarities. You know, you look here, you look here, you look here. All right. And now if we come over here, let me get this out of the way, right? Do you see the similarities between what we're doing here, here, and here? I mean, just have a look at that compared to the chart. You see, we're having that retest, right? We're having that retest, and look at that. So to me, this is really just saying that you're having some type of a consolidation. And yes, of course, you know, we could potentially go down to fill that CME futures gap. And But one thing you have to pay attention to is, like, if you're looking at this market cipher chart, right? We're coming down here, we're putting in a bit of a wave, and you can see these green dots, right? Here was this green dot that flashed on the weekly, that pretty much marked the bottom. Here's this green dot that flashed on the weekly, that pretty much marked the bottom. Now, we don't have a green dot yet, and we don't even have this fully crossing over, but you can see the similarities between this, and what could potentially be happening right now. So again, I'm still seeing very constructive patterns on this. Let me get this out of the way. This is from the previous. Obviously with the guppy, We know that if we stay within the green bands, and keep in mind, you know, when these turn green, they tend to stay green for quite a long time, and we haven't seen us even touch the bottom. The bottom of this suggests that Bitcoin could go as low as $70,930 and still be in a constructive uptrend. And I know that people don't want to hear about that, but that is just the case for Bitcoin. Not to mention, yeah, we have these fake outs to the top, but if you look here, we have a nice bottom support that has been supporting us ever since this touch back in September of last year, and of 2020. I'm sorry, actually of 2023. And the other thing, and again, this is what we were talking about over on LevX, is that we have these buy signal indicators, right? Now, it's not a perfect indicator and it doesn't exactly mark the total bottom, but out of all the instances that we have ever had this indicator flash, it has had an 85% chance that the previous low was the lowest we were going to get. It doesn't mean we could try to come down and retest it, right? So if that's around 76, whatever, possible 72 maybe, just to touch some of those key areas. But ultimately, this is suggesting that we have at least put in the lower, low for the area right now. So yeah, could we come back down like this, retest the bottom? Sure. But for the most part, as you can see, you know, they usually tend to move to the upside, but it doesn't mean that you can't have some moves to the downside before that, right? And ultimately, we're still just hanging around between these areas. We have the 1002, which was the 1.618, right? And then we had the previous high at the 4.23. So 73,008 to 102. And what have we been doing for 5 months? Just ranging, guys, just ranging. Lots of emotion. I know it can get scary, but you know, we ranged here, we were ranging here, and now we're ranging here. And you know, this isn't even as long. I mean, look at how long this was, right? This was a lot longer than what we've been going through right now. But I can understand that this could possibly, you know, bore people or something like that. But the interesting thing is that we have $31.8 billion, okay, worth of stable coins, for example, just on Bybit alone. Now, if you track these prices, generally what happens is when you start having all of this dry powder, right, when you see so many people in stable coins, yes, it could potentially mean that they're fearful. That's a possibility. But to me, it signals that someone is just waiting to pounce on that opportunity, right? And what's crazy is, again, if you look at who is and is not selling, of course, right here, for example, you will notice that yet again, you have the short-term holders, which are arguably potentially the retail, selling, and you have the whales buying, okay? And that's just something to keep in mind. Because if you look at this right here, I mean, this, you know, anybody could see how this is going up and up and up. What we're having is seller exhaustion, right? The sellers are getting tired of selling, right? At first, you have these massive, you know, sell-offs, massive volume. And right now, we're not really seeing that much volume, which some people think that's a bad thing. Oh, there's no volume. Except in my experience, I find that when you get to these moments where the volume gets very, 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 very low, that's usually when you have an explosive move, okay? So I would just be very patient for that. And also, again, for everybody that was, you know, asking for cheap Bitcoin, well, here's the opportunity, you know, and everybody doesn't want to pounce on it. But, you know, what gets me excited is when I see things, Bitcoin being 1.3% of global money. Okay, just think about the possibility of that. If you just take the hard money alone, which is gold and Bitcoin, gold sitting at 20.2 trillion, Bitcoin 1.7, give or take, maybe it's a little bit different today. You know, this whole entire hard money only represents less than 17%. There are, and this is just money, fiat money in general, right? This is not even including things like real estate, derivatives, artwork, and all the other places that people can put their money to. And what we're finding is, you know, a lot of people that were into things like real estate, realizing that they have to sit on this for 10 years, 20 years just to get their money back. They're looking into these hard assets like Bitcoin, which have provided an asymmetric risk long term, which is why I remain bullish on long term on Bitcoin. Short term, it can always get turbulent, right? There are options to trade it, right? I mean, we do look at these levels, you can play them, but long term, I think we're all very aware of what the ultimate strategy is for Bitcoin. And just having a look at the simple Bitcoin power law right here, you know, forget all this other stuff. This is like technical. We go into this a lot. But if you just look at this versus the, the market cap of gold right here, yeah, it looks great on paper, but look at Bitcoin, this exponential growth. And the crazy thing is we tend to shoot off of this average line pretty freaking high, especially during the ends. And yet, this is what everyone's getting bearish about. This little thing right here, that's like Bitcoin being down here or something like that. You know what I mean? This is really nothing compared to what we have had the ability to actually see Bitcoin do in the past. And not to mention that we also just have so much pro crypto, pro Bitcoin news coming out. It's funny to me how still everyone is so bearish. Yeah, there's the tariffs and a lot of uncertainty. I know, equities have had a little bit of a struggle, kind of just sitting and waiting and seeing what's going to happen with this. But for example, you have President Trump's executive director, literally just saying, we view Bitcoin as digital gold and we want as much as we can get our hands on.
The US has already acquired about 200,000 BTC. That's worth about $17 billion. Strategy CEO Michael Saylor is suggesting that the US acquire up to 25% of the Bitcoin supply by 2035. What would be the target amount for the United States in your view?
Well, I get asked this question a lot, and I think the answer to that, like I said at the summit yesterday, is as much as we can possibly get, so long as it's in budget neutral ways that don't cost the taxpayer a dime. I think we have a lot of high IQ people in the building that are working on this, and folks over at the Treasury office and folks over at Commerce, working with the internal working group that was set up in the first digital assets EO. We'll be able to come up with ways to accumulate more really over the course of the next few years and beyond that. I mean, look, we view Bitcoin as being digital gold. That's why we set up the strategic Bitcoin reserve in the way that we did, right? Bitcoin is a commodity. It's not a security. As our AI and cryptos are, David Sachs likes to say, it has the immaculate conception, meaning that there's no issuer. It has intrinsic stored value that's traditionally accepted. And we feel like it's in the best interest of Americans to hold on to this asset long-term and accumulate as much as we can get. That's why we've akin this to digital gold and talked about building the digital Fort Knox for the United States. And, you mentioned the Bitcoin that we have possession of. We've actually been in possession of nearly 400,000 Bitcoin. We sold roughly half of that prematurely at about, I think it was close to $370 million is what we sold it for. If we would have held on to that, it would have been worth $17 billion today. I mean, it just goes to show you how important this asset is and what we can do with it to benefit the American people. One thing that I've said repeatedly throughout the media circuit is that I think it's really nice that we have a president that's actually looking to accumulate assets for Americans rather than take it away, unlike the last regime that we had here at the White House. But we feel very confident about our plan. We feel confident about the internal working group that was set up in that first EO. And I think we're going to have tremendous ideas on how to accomplish this.
And of course, he can't outright say it, but there have even been hints of potentially selling that gold in our reserve to buy some of that Bitcoin.
There's a lot of high IQ people working on this, and I will give you an example, but I say that only to say that there's been countless ideas over the course of the last week or so, and it's in a sense of how we can actually accomplish this. I'll actually point you to Senator Lummis's Bitcoin Act of 2025, in which she believes that we can identify the real true value of some of these gold certificates that are, basically, I think it's like $172 an ounce is what they're categorized at right now. And if we actually realize the gains on that, that would be a budget neutral way to acquire more Bitcoin. I mean, there's countless different ways you can do it. I know the Secretary of Treasury, Bessent, and the Secretary of Commerce with Howard Lutnick. I mean, they're going to come up with, these are smart people that understand this space really well. And as we convene as a working group, we'll flesh out the best ideas and we'll enact those ideas.
Now, obviously, they said that they have to do this in a way that, wouldn't burden the taxpayers, right? But as Cynthia Lummis has suggested, buying $1 million worth of Bitcoin, 200,000 potentially for the next 5 years, that's a strategy that we've been looking at. And other countries, they tend to follow the US. They tend to follow what the US is doing. And you have Pakistan's crypto council saying that Bitcoin is only heading up and that every country in the world has to follow America or else they do risk being left behind.
As you were rightly mentioning, Trump's return is the biggest bullish catalyst for crypto in history. Today, he makes history as the first sitting U.S. president to speak at a Bitcoin or crypto conference in New York. And I think, Trump is essentially flipping the script. Trump signed the executive order instructing regulatory bodies to accommodate digital assets, forming a White House crypto advisory team, creating a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve. And, we have to understand what that means, is that means that the largest economy in the world is creating it like a valuable national asset, similar to how it stockpiles gold or oil for economic security and strength. So this is why I think the US sets the tone for the world. Trump is making crypto a national priority, and every country, including Pakistan, will have to follow suit or will be at the risk of being left behind.
And don't forget, China banned Bitcoin a few years back, right? Bitcoin saw a 50% crash when that happened, a 50% crash. And it still was able to bounce back from that. And now you have Hong Kong, okay, that's issuing the ETF, pretty much looking to shift their crypto policies, hinting at the fact that maybe China could change their stance.
Sort of forward push by Hong Kong at the moment, a sign that trading and crypto could return to the mainland, which of course would be a huge boost for the market.
That's an interesting question. You know, Hong Kong is always the gateway to the Chinese mainland market, and Hong Kong is always used as the lab for experiments, either in economies or in new industries or new sectors. From what we run regulated exchange, regulated funds in Hong Kong. From our conversations with the regulators, I think in a way they are trying their best to use the one country, two systems as an experiment. If it's successful, I think there is the possibility the mainland China government will reconsider their stance towards the crypto and Web3 industry.
Do you think that's inevitable? Do you think the mainland government will definitely bring crypto back, or it's still a wait and see?
You know, for a government to have a clear message, it takes time. From what I know so far, our conversations with the mainland professionals and related sources, I think they are now looking at the market and see what's going on in other countries, what's happening in Web3 industries, and then they may come up with their response towards this industry.
But ultimately, guys, that's it for me. I just wanted to do a quick update. I know it's nothing crazy exciting, but I feel like I have to update once in a while, even though there's not much to talk about, because there are a lot of people out there that they tend to lose faith. I think what happened was a lot of people got involved in these meme coins, altcoins. They lost their asses, and it really bummed them out, right? But ultimately, if you've been focusing on Bitcoin and you've been accumulating, Bitcoin has had the greatest return. I mean, Ethereum, unfortunately, has yet to even make a new all-time high. Bitcoin has made several since that time, right? So sometimes we just need these markets to reset, refresh, right? We do have the CME futures gap. Until we start seeing some major shifts on the charts, some moving averages, crossing to the downside, getting some death crosses, or, something terrible, then I'll let you know. But for me right now, I maintain a bullish perspective on Bitcoin with some short-term turbulence. That's really where we're still at, guys. So thanks again. If you do enjoy this content, definitely get subscribed, drop a like. Do check out LevX below again if you guys do want those updates. I'm posting over there with little updates when I can't do it over here. Plus, LevX is honestly just a great exchange. They're a little bit new, but I know all the guys there, totally legit. It's been audited. I use it all the time. And if you are looking to trade with a proven edge, you can also check out MetaSignals. Now, I just wanted to point out that here's one of their calls they had the other day on KNC. But now what they're doing is, if you guys want, a lot of people were asking for automated trades. So now if you join the free Discord for MetaSignals, they do have free alerts. But if you want, you can place the trades directly from the Discord account. I believe they're working with BingX. Now, I'm not 100% familiar with BingX. Never really use the exchange. Just keep that in mind. Hopefully, maybe they'll roll out some other exchanges, but check it out. It's totally free if you guys want to get that NFT. There are less than 900 available, I believe. Yeah, there's about 878 still remaining. And with Ethereum prices this low, it could be a really good time to lock that in. So check that out all below, guys. And yeah, that's it for me. If you guys want to learn how to trade, check out these tutorials popping up right here. I'm probably going to end up doing some updated tutorials specifically for maybe Antarctic decentralized exchanges. People are sometimes scared or they don't like using them, but it's totally simple. The fees are ridiculously cheap. So anyway, guys, though, I'll update you on all that. Just get subscribed. Follow me over on Twitter if you want. And until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.